Hey, I was muted. Hey, everybody. I am Bernard Damon Holcomb, and I am the creator and the host of the Damon Speak Show. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Listen, we have a fantastic show planned for you tonight. Call your friends. People don't call anymore, do they? They really don't. Text your friends, slide in those DMs, say, girl, boy, you need to tune in right now to the Damon Speak Show. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us in all the places because we're getting down into the nitty gritty tonight. Before we get into the show, I would love to talk about seeds. A lot of times when we do things in our lives, we get attached to the outcome and we get attached to how quickly things are happening. And we get really anxious about if they're not happening in the right time. But what if we could embody the idea that we're just planting seeds? If you think about a farmer, Abraham Hicks would say this all the time, would make me chuckle. If you think about a farmer, they don't put a seed in the ground, water it, and then the next day come back and curse the ground and say, you dumb seed, why aren't you growing? Why aren't you a full stalk of corn right now? It takes time. It takes time for the seed to die. It takes time for the seed to decay. And so you just water it a little bit, give it a little sunshine. I am starting to embody the idea that it's not my responsibility to make it grow. It's my responsibility to plant it and then let it be what it is as much as possible. We're talking about dating tonight. Let's say your relationship is a seed that's grown into a small plant. Sometimes we get really anxious. I myself am an anxious, preoccupied dater, talking about adult attachment style. So I overwater a little bit, and I've drowned many relationships. I've drowned many opportunities to have a fantastic time because I was overwatering. So I want to encourage you, and we'll talk to the experts tonight, but I want to encourage you maybe not to put all your eggs in one basket. That doesn't mean, if you're uncomfortable with dating multiple people, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're dating. Hey, Tiberius, thank you for tuning in. That doesn't mean that you're dating multiple people. That means that you're spending time with your mom. That means that you're reading a great book. That means that you're maybe getting that online certification that you've always thought about, or connecting with your best friend more times. And then when you do see that person, if you're interested in just that one person, when you do see that person, it's like, oh my God, I haven't seen you. I have so much to talk about. I have so much to tell you. And it can really become a great time. That's my thought for the week. Just think about seeds. If you want to talk about it, if you want to talk about anything, you can always reach me in my DMs. You can email me at damonspeaks411@gmail.com. But other than that, we're getting ready to get into the show. I want to introduce these gentlemen. I'm going to read their bios to you. We have Mr. Lamont White, otherwise known as the Gay Dating Coach. He is the owner of BetterWayToMeet.com, which is a professional matchmaking, dating coaching, and couples counseling service for gay men in the United States. Since 2014, Mr. White has matched hundreds of single guys and even helped a few guys get married. Okay. Mr. White is also the host of the new show, Shoot Your Shot Wednesdays. Listen, I've seen a few of these and they are live. Okay. You need to shoot your shot, where single guys answer insightful, funny, and spicy questions about being single. Mr. White has an undergraduate degree in psychology and graduate degrees in professional community counseling. He lives in Atlanta with his husband and their two nephews. Then we also have Mr. Ken Reed. He's a gay relationship coach that uses his therapy skills to assess his clients to be more mindful, self-loving, to learn how to overcome patterns of behavior that keep them lonely, rejected, and stuck in dating. Okay, how many times have you felt lonely, rejected, and stuck? I know that I've done that a few times. Okay, he came to this career by complete accident. I would love to hear about this. He had a sudden breakup with a man that he very much loved, and the impact of that changed his life. They were only together for 1 month, and it felt like they'd been dating for years, and it took him 6 painful months to move on. Therapy wasn't helping, neither was overworking or dating again. He couldn't find any gay coaches that helped in his area, and all he saw were straight relationship coaches that offered very inconsistent and unhelpful advice for his circumstances. It was only when he took a mindful-based approach to his situation did he find that everything changed for him. He began to see how his childhood had set him up to fail, and that he needed to unlearn his people-pleasing. Ooh, come on. Me. People pleasing, raise his self-esteem, self-love, self-worth, and overcome his anxiety in dating. Now, feeling secure, he loves dating. He finds it such a wonderful self-reflective experience. He no longer feels lonely without a partner. He doesn't feel insecure about how he looks or acts, and he can recognize red flags and because we talk about red flags a lot and green flags in a person within a few dates. Listen, if I could get there, if you could get there, the world would be a much better place. He now teaches his clients how to achieve what he's achieved for himself so that they can attract secure, honest, and committed partners without feeling codependent or needy. Please, everyone, welcome Lamont White and Ken Reed to the Damon Speaks Show.
Hey, Bernard, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How you guys doing tonight?
Yeah, really good. Thank you very much. It's been a very exciting part of finishing Easter for me, knowing that this was a show starting my new week.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Is there anything you guys wanted to add to the bios, the illustrious bios that I just read?
Well, listen, I can say I'm trying to help guys fall in love. That is my mission.
Yeah, I think for me, the only thing I'd add to complement my bio is just to say that I'm really trying to help guys better understand themselves so they can take responsibility for the patterns of behavior that might be keeping them stuck from attracting the right people in their life.
I love it. I love that you guys both have different perspectives, but it's really the same goal, like making people or helping people realize their worth, helping people to fall in love. Because I feel like a lot of times in the gay community, because of the trauma that we experience, it's difficult for us to believe that we can actually have fun and fall in love, you know?
Well, usually we fall in love and have fun, but realize that sometimes that fun, that chemistry that we think we want on date number one can sometimes set us up for fail because of a whole range of reasons, because it's based on, very similar people who've got a very similar anxious nervous system. And we're dating with people who are very emotionally unavailable, who make us feel very insecure. And as a consequence, we have to ask ourselves the really hard question, which is, do we even know what we want when we're dating? And I think we all want to be excited by our partner, but sometimes I think we have to be mindful that we need to be mindful of where that excitement is taking us. And if it's the difference between I want to learn and grow versus I feel like I'm playing a high poker game, and if I don't win this, there's something wrong with me.
The stakes are too high. The stakes are too high. We can't really enjoy it. Okay. Really gonna get into it. But first, I love to open up the show with a few memes. So we're gonna bring up the first meme and I'll just ask you all how you feel about it. So meme number one, it says, being a hoe never got me hurt. Being faithful did. Whole life or no life?
Oh, so TT. TT
toxic.
It sounds toxic. I think part of dating, it's taking a risk. Part of putting yourself out there is knowing that it might not go well, that there are going to be some mistakes. And I would say it's worth it. It is worth the heartache, the tears, the long nights, if you find someone that's really compatible for you. So whole life might have hurt you, but a good life will make you feel even better with the right guy. So TT, please don't lose hope. Please.
I love that. And the other thing I was going to say, as someone who had whole life for a very long time, I can say it's like numbing yourself. You just chase chemistry after chemistry, but it's kind of like a quick fix, like kind of going drinking or kind of taking drugs to numb your pain. You got to address that pain at one point or another. And to be completely honest, whole life is actually worse than single life, feeling good and secure by yourself, because you just feel like there's nothing going on. You feel empty. So I think that the better way to go about it is actually to think about, what are you missing out? And you'll quickly realize that in many cases, it's a feeling of connection. Because in all the cases I had with my whole life or my friends with benefits stage, I felt empty and I'm very alone.
Oh, I think we lose sight of that. I think we get excited about someone, or we get excited about having someone that we can maybe have sex with regularly, or even having sex with a lot of different people, but we lose sight of the connection part and how it really makes us feel so empty. Like, I've never really been like the hookup guy, but I would do it because I felt like that was what society wanted, or that was how I was going to meet someone, because I couldn't really see another way. But undoubtedly, every time, like, I would be either in the middle of the act thinking, why am I doing this? Like my spirit deeply would be like, I just really don't want to be doing this. Or afterwards, I would feel extremely empty, like I was gutted, like there was no feeling. But I would do it over and over and over again, chasing what I thought was the path for me to find a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So I think sometimes, and this is to TT, is that I think we sometimes put so much value on sex, and we think that if you have multiple sex partners, that it is shameful and that it is wrong. So I think if you are going to do the whole life, it's about, what are you getting out of it? Are you doing it for recreation? Are you doing it to fill an empty void? Why are you doing it? And if you can answer the question that you are doing it for healthy reasons, then have at it, keep at it until you find the right one who can match your energy.
Now, what would be a healthy reason to do the whole life? Because there's such a negative connotation to whole life.
Sexual gratification, pleasure, enjoying it. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'd agree with Bernard. I think if you're going to do it with the intention that you're just out there to have a fun time. And honestly, as someone who did this myself, the first thing I'd say to guys on dates is, I am just looking here for friends with benefits. I am not looking for anything other than that. And, you know, yes, I was protecting myself because I was hurting deep inside. And I thought that that was what I wanted. It doesn't matter in hindsight whether or not I was doing the right thing or not. For me, I think I justify it by saying it was just a coping mechanism for me at the time. But as long as that was communicated by saying, this is what I'm after at this time, and if someone agrees to it, well then, you know, have at it.
I feel like even in those times where someone agrees to it, for me, it's difficult for someone not to get hurt, because someone is going to catch feelings, or the energy is somehow going to change. In your coaching experience, have you noticed that? Have people actually been able to be equal on both sides and be like, oh, this is just friends with benefits, we're just having fun and it's totally fine?
Well, Bernard, if the sex is good, you're going to want more of it, right?
Yeah.
So you should catch feelings. You should catch feelings. Now, if it's trash, then you're going to move on. Right?
It really is.
I love it.
I agree with Lamont. I agree with Lamont so hard because, you know, it's very one way or the other way. And for me, I've often found that I was dating guys and even, you know, connecting with guys who are emotionally unavailable, you know, the quality of the sex diminishes very quickly because, you know, they're usually just looking for a very quick time with someone. So it didn't fulfill my needs sexually. So I'd move on very quickly from one person to the other. It's diminishing returns with those kind of individuals. And then for those that you do get hooked and connected with, Lamont's right. You know, of course, having sex is going to make you feel good because you get addicted to that, you know, to the oxytocin that's flooding your system. You just want more of that. And it can lead into some codependency too, because you think that they're your source of happiness because they're giving you a great feeling that you can't get from anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. And I think you have to figure out, as I lose my voice, you have to figure out what type of value do you place on sex? And if sex is high on your list, casual sex is not for you. Not for you at all. You need to make sure you go on a date with this guy, get to know him, delay sex so that you can find something deeper. And you have to ask yourself that question. And if you don't, then you're going to get your feelings hurt like TT.
Is there, I know that every situation is different, but in general, is there a certain amount of time, if you're one of those people where sex is high on your list, for you to delay sex? Because what I would think as someone who identifies with sex being high on my list, there's fear that if I don't connect with you physically, that we're never going to get there. We're never going to get to the relationship part, and we'll just never have sex. So is there an amount of time? How does that usually develop?
Well, there are multiple things you can do besides having sex.
Okay, very good. Very good.
Right. And I think you can communicate to your partner about where sex plays for you and saying, hey, you know, I want to get to know you. So it's going to be a couple weeks. It's going to be a month, or it's going to take me trusting you, or you have to communicate what your needs are so that he doesn't think you're not interested. If you can't just ignore it like it's the elephant in the room, like, no, you're attractive. He wants to be with you. You need to communicate, hey, I want to go slow. Okay, so he knows to stick around and wait for the prize that is you.
Yes, prize.
Yeah. I love that, Lamont. And I think, you know, I've done exactly as you've described with guys, and I have to say it's been worth it. And I'll tell you why. It's very easy to, you know, have the fall in love at first sight moment because you're physically attracted to a guy. That does not mean you know them. So even if sex is high on your list, you really need to be very mindful of the role it plays on your body as well. Because when you become, you know, sexually addicted to someone, like when you become really hooked on that person physically, you can then prematurely enter the honeymoon phase with a guy who you may not even know. And the consequence there is that you run a real risk of having a major heartbreak. You know, we underestimate the danger of getting with the wrong guy or girl, depending on, you know, your gender, like, you know, in the honeymoon phase, because it's like being taken from the peak, Mount Everest of happiness, all the way down to the Mariana Trenches. And that's what causes the real heartbreak for so many people, because they get hooked to someone they don't even know. And in that honeymoon phase, you know, it's understandable that they don't see red flags, because why would they want to deny themselves the good feelings that they're getting from someone who's with them? And funnily enough, they become emotionally unavailable to the anxiety that they're probably feeling. And so the warning lights are all in their gut. It's clear as day. And then, you know, when they are in a situation where if it isn't someone who they want to be with for a long period of time, the disappointment is heartbreaking. So I think my overall answer is, look, sex is important. Sex is something that we want, but I'd actually get people to think, you know, what's easier to learn? Being emotionally vulnerable and, you know, really committing with someone for the long haul, or learning how to be someone good in the bed? Because I can tell you now, learning to be vulnerable and being emotionally available takes way longer, more effort, therapy, than learning to be a sexual aficionado in a few months' time.
Well, that was a whole sermon. Lamont, do you have anything?
I told you Ken and I can talk, so we'll be here all night. Okay.
Well, okay, this really just highlighted something for me, and we're only on the first meme, but let's go in. So I have a real issue with non-monogamy because sex is so high on my list. Because I only want to have sex with that person. I may be sexually attracted to other people. I don't want to deny that and say, oh, you're the only one that I'll ever want. But it's so high on my list. And for me to be able to trust someone, I have to feel like it's just us.
Yeah.
But I know that there are other styles of dating and relationships. So there's like non-monogamy, there's, you know, open relationship, there's polyamory. But I don't think that we should be made to feel bad about what we are, because I've been feeling pressure as of late, seeing a lot of my friends in open relationships and polyamorous relationships, feeling, well, is something wrong with me? Am I not evolved enough?
There's nothing wrong with you, nothing. So I always say, why do you feel like that monogamy is only going to work for you? Is it something that you were taught? Is it something that you experienced? Was monogamy something that you were taught? Is it something that you experienced? How did you come to know that, hey, this is only going to work one way? It's just he and I. Once you figure out where that, if that's from a healthy place, then you get in a relationship where it's just the two of you, and you tell the guys, listen, I can't do any of that other stuff because I know how my heart is going to be. I know how my feelings will be. I really want to be with you. But the thing about it is setting the environment for the guy to be comfortable enough to be honest with you about what he can and what he cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
Which is hard.
It's so easy to lie because you like this person and say, yeah, I believe in monogamy. Or it's easy for people to lie because they want to keep you in their lives, but they're not really comfortable saying, I actually would rather us have a threesome, or I actually would rather us be able to do something on the side when we're traveling, or whatever it may be. It's really difficult.
To be honest though, Bernard, I often see the opposite of that, meaning that I often see a lot of guys accepting to open relationships which they don't want to be a part of. I often see it out of fear because they're worried about the guy leaving them and wanting to just open up to placate what they're saying. And I'll be honest in saying that in many cases, those people who want to open those relationships up are doing that because of space. They're terrified of intimacy, and they often will say, oh, look, I want an open relationship because I want to explore these other areas. That's not the real reason in many cases. And I think that emotional avoidancy can be a real issue. So I think, but what I love about what Bernard was saying too is figure out what you like, figure out what you feel works for you. I know I've tried open relationships. I've tried monogamy. I prefer monogamy just because that's what vibes with me better. And, I just think that that's kind of like knowing what's healthy for you in eating, knowing what is how you like to work out when you go to the gym. It's not going to be the same for everyone. So I think that the more you figure out what's true to you versus what's true to, what everyone else is doing around you is way more important for you and your future partner.
Oh, I love it. And not to get too coachy, but listening to what Lamont said earlier about it coming from a healthy place, I think that my attachment to monogamy isn't necessarily from a healthy place because I watched my parents' marriage dissolve because of non-monogamy over and over and over again. And that broke apart my family. And so I think I really have some issues that I should work out in therapy with what it means to be committed and what it means to be in a monogamous relationship. Like, I've never been in a relationship long enough for it to be an issue, but I could see, someone being together for 15 years, like, I don't know if I want to do this monogamy thing anymore. So it's something that could come up later.
Yeah, it is something that you have to struggle with, that you have to sit with and figure out where does it come from. For a lot of people, it becomes because of religion, that it's a misinterpretation of the Bible, where it was a lot of open relationships in the Bible, but now it's taught that it's just supposed to be two people. So I think it's really about figuring out why you believe that. And once you figure out why, being comfortable with it and sticking to your guns and saying, this is who I am. This is what is going to make me happy.
Pilgrim Dean says, how do y'all feel about kitchen table poly? I don't know what that is. Do you all know what that is?
I have no idea.
It has something to do with polyamory. Pilgrim, could you maybe explain a little bit more for us? If you're just tuning in, this is the Damon Speak Show. We're talking about gay dating tonight with two coaches, Lamont White and Ken Reed. We're having a fantastic time. We're going to move on to the next meme. Pilgrim, please come back. Let us know about kitchen table poly. But first, this meme says, my summer plans after I get the vaccine, I'm going to be up in here sinning. I'm going to be out there in the streets. Have you guys been vaccinated? How do you feel about the vaccine?
Well, in terms of the COVID vaccine, it's very slow coming out to Sydney, Australia. And to be completely honest, life here has been pretty much pre-COVID in the sense that we've been handling COVID really well. So, I mean, I haven't been sitting, but I tell you what, I can understand the feeling from when lockdown was a thing. And so to answer your question, how do I feel about the vaccine? Look, if it makes you feel like it's going to improve your, if it's placebo, if you feel like it's going to make you feel more protected against the virus, go for your life. I, for one, am not going to judge anyone for taking it.
Yeah, so Match did a survey, and they surveyed their users and found that during like the pandemic, most of last year, guys were actually delaying having sex and just communicating more on the apps. So I think we will continue to see that until next year. I think that even in the United States, distribution is limited to certain types of people, certain populations in certain areas. So I think this is the long haul. This is the long haul. So singles are, and what I love about gay men is that they are being educated about transmission, about the vaccine, and making safe choices. Like literally saying, hey, this is what I'm willing to compromise, or this is what I'm going to stick to. So if that's what they want to, I guess, go out and sin, have at it with Lil Nas X, okay?
Yeah, I agree with Lamont. And I think the other thing I'd say too is if you want to have fun and you want to enjoy it, just know that like, yeah, you can do that, but the consequence might be, you know, an infection of one thing or many. So
yeah.
Greatest self-esteem test, you know, you do you choose what you want to do.
Yeah. Pilgrim is back. So pseudo closed poly or closed poly relationships. So not an open relationship, but one where everyone knows and is comfortable in the extended relationships.
Yeah, so gay men have been making, well, straight folks too, have been making these agreements about like what's okay in the relationship, what's not. And that could be, you know, if they go on vacation, it's okay to play, or if it's an anniversary, you know. But I think it's all about, there's no judgment. It's you communicating to your partner what your needs are, and the two of you agreeing to that and saying this is okay, even if that changes over time, where you're saying, I thought I'd be okay with this, but I'm not anymore. So let's try something different. It's all about making sure your life partner is going to be there, committed to you, and the two of you working out what works well for you and keeping people out of your business.
Yes, stay out my business. Ken, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's all really based on how you communicate with your partner, right? I mean, your relationship is a negotiation and it's evolving all the time. So I think the idea that, you know, for instance, I have for my relationship, the functionality of it could be very different when I'm with someone. It could grow to be something completely different. Like right now, for instance, I'm so happy with the idea of monogamy, the idea of being with a partner who, you know, does their own thing. I see them for quality time once a week where we, you know, have a really good time to date one another and to, you know, we see each other in the evening on a weekday, we part ways of a morning, but that may change. I don't know how that's going to feel. And to be honest, if it didn't change, there'd probably be something wrong because, you know, we as human beings are creatures where, yes, we like our habits, but even more than that, we like our growth. We love variety. So I think being mindfully aware of when things are becoming stale and actually addressing that with the only person that matters, your partner, and talking about what you want to do and what you want to explore. Because at the end of the day, you could talk, this is the mistake I see so many people making. Oh, I'm going to talk to my friend. Let me talk to my parents. And of course, they all want the best for you, but with all due respect, they don't know how to communicate that to you. So the best thing you should do is actually talk to your partner because he's the one in the relationship with you. And so you should talk about it, address your fears, get messy, and just pick up the pieces and see how it works for you both.
I think I love that. I think it really comes down to honesty and open communication. If you're in a poly relationship and you've decided that that's what you want, then I mean, for me, as someone that's like monogamy, the closed poly relationships seem really attractive to me if I were going to go that route. But yeah, I think it's really about just telling the truth. Oh, the other thing I was going to say is that I think for some people, they may be interested in polyamorous relationships or whatever, but they're currently with someone who they're monogamous with, and they're afraid that if they open that door, they'll never be able to close it again. Like if you make that decision, you'll never be able to say, you know what, this makes me uncomfortable. Can we go back?
Of course you can. It's like saying that, you try vegan and then realize I don't like having tofu and eggplant. It's like, of course you can choose to go back to something else. It's not a one size fits all approach that you're locked in, bounded and contracted for life. I think that we need to get at this notion that, it's one way or the highway. It's just, let's just try this and see how it feels. And it might feel good now. It may not feel later, but that's okay. It's about responding to my gut. Like, this is the thing I tell my clients. Dating is not about up here. It's about responding to what goes on in your central nervous system. When you're feeling anxiety, when you're feeling bored, when you're feeling nervous, they're emotions too. And so your job with the brain is to go, okay, why am I feeling this way? Then address that with your partner.
And in relationships, if they become toxic and unhealthy for a sustained amount of time, it's okay to leave that relationship.
Amen.
And that does not mean it's a failure. It just means that the two of you are no longer compatible. And I think sometimes we care too much about what other people think, and we stay in unhealthy situations just because of perception. So things change in relationships, and when it becomes unhealthy, it is okay to leave. It is okay.
It is okay to leave. The other thought I was having was that it's really about trust, because if you open your relationship and you and your partner have good communication, then you know that those are the boundaries. But then if you decide together to close it again, you really have to trust your partner to stick to what you guys have said instead of like having sneaky links.
I think less than maybe trusting your partner, because this is something I try and teach my guys as well, is that stop trusting your partner, start trusting yourself, because your partner will need to give you reassurance and also consistency. That's one thing, but you also need to have trust in your boundaries and also your values, meaning that if you require, honesty, if you require consistency and you're not getting it, then you need to trust yourself to call that out and be like, listen, I'm not getting that. And so can we talk about what I need in order to feel secure again? I think we spend far too much time begging and hoping our partner will change without ever telling them how we're feeling. So I think our first job, trust ourselves before we trust someone else, because I think part of the problem with outsourcing, how we feel, worrying about what people think is exactly that, is that we place too much of our self-esteem on the opinions of others and not actually trusting our own values.
Yeah. And the only thing I also add is that you can't control your partner.
No.
Yeah, and it's not your job to control him. So the whole trust factor is, you will drive yourself bananas trying to worry about what's going on. So it's like, allow your partner to show up and be himself. Like that's authentic. That's love. Showing up and being who you are, and taking a look at him and saying, I appreciate this. I love you. I still want to connect with you. You don't want your partner to be something that he's not so he can stay with you. No. Be you. Be your best self. Yeah.
Listen,
and I think to add to that too, sorry, you go, Bernard.
No, go ahead.
The thing I was going to add to that too was just that it's still important to remember that though you cannot change your partner, you still have the right to state what your needs are. Because it's okay to say, like, look, for me, I know a lot of guys. They love physically attractive guys. I like it when guys are working out and looking out for their health, but they probably don't know how to express that in a way that their partner might respect. So instead of saying, you're ugly, I don't want to sleep with you, you could say something more to the effect of, listen, I'm the kind of guy who, is really interested and invested in being with a partner physically who's also working on their physical health, because that means longevity. That also means that we can, enjoy ourselves in ways where we're able to overcome a lot of life's challenges. Mm-hmm. How does that feel to you? Because when you open an open-ended question like that, you then allow that room for someone to step in and see if it also aligns with something that they want for themselves too. They may not always accept, but at the end of the day, it's up to you to see how much you are willing to put up with. And more importantly, whether you like 80% of what they give you. Because at the end of the day, maybe that thing that you ask for isn't actually worth sacrificing how they make you feel on a day-to-day basis.
So true. So true. I was going to say that a lot of times I think that people think it would be great if they could date a mind reader. It's really hard to communicate. I'm finding that it's super hard to communicate what I actually want, because the fear is if I tell you exactly how I feel, what I want, what I need, that you're going to walk away.
Oh, yeah.
But the thing that I've come to realize is that you can't read my mind. So I'm upset, I'm angry at you, and I'm ready to curse you out, but you don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I need to tell you that because if you're going to walk away, that should happen like now instead of 15 years from now.
Yeah, Bernard, it's all about approach. Like, I feel like my husband and I, we talk about a lot of things, and it's about the approach. And like, if you come across as condescending or rude, judgmental, and having the conversation when you're angry, yeah, that's the wrong time. It's really saying, hey, these are my needs, or I didn't like when you did X, Y, and Z, or here's what I would like to see a little differently. And even when I'm coaching, I do couples counseling. Those are things that we talk about. Like, if hygiene is something, like I got one who's like, hygiene is really important. I'm like, well, maybe you should say, hey, I know you smoke cigarettes, but whenever, you want to come kiss me, I need you to make sure you take care of all that for me. Make sure it's nice and fresh, so we can make it happen. Instead of saying, oh, your breath stinks because of those nasty cigarettes.
Got it.
It's all the approach. It's the approach.
Completely different. Completely different. I'm not even in that relationship, and I felt better. Let's move on to meme 3. Try harder. I'm worth it. What does this bring to mind?
Ooh, I don't know about you, Lamont, but like when I think of this, I'm a bit worried about it on my first reading, because it kind of feels like a jealous ex who's been abruptly broken up with is saying to their last lover mentally, try harder, I'm worth it, as in to say, can you actually put in the effort to the relationship that you broke up with me? So my feeling around this one is try harder for yourself. Like, stop, stop worrying about, who left you. They clearly couldn't appreciate you. To make this a really basic analogy, that's like saying to, I don't know if you have this in the States, but like, let's just say you have a cheap bottle of wine from the middle of nowhere. That's like saying, try harder, I'm worth it, when you're worth a champagne. I mean, that's so stupid.
Yeah. I agree with you, Ken. It's really, in relationships, it's time, energy, and money, right? Those are things that you're putting out. And when the energy is the effort, but it's what you put out. Like, you set up time to meet with him, you spend money on dates, you call him, tell him you love him. It's the effort that you make him feel comfortable to be himself. So no, this person, I would say you try harder on you.
So it really should be try harder. I'm like, try harder, you're worth it. If you're talking to yourself in the mirror, like, try harder for myself, not for something outside of me.
Mm-hmm.
Try harder, the relationship is worth it.
Oof. I love it. Tiberius says boundaries and demands are two different things. The first is healthy self-respect, and the second, toxic behavior.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think to answer that to Tiberius, it's kind of like what Lamont was saying too, which is there's a difference in approach. It's the difference between a narcissistic partner saying to their lover, you look better in that outfit. You need to be working out because that's the only way I'm going to stay in this relationship and have sex with you. That's controlling. But if you say, listen, part of my values are self-growth. And for me, I like to feel like, we're able to work through some of the challenges that come up emotionally, mentally, and I have the space to talk about it with my partner because I want to feel like I can have that space to evolve and to grow. And so I'd like to know, how do you feel about being open and vulnerable with me when I'm going through, these challenges. Or maybe to relate it more to the previous example that I had, I'm the kind of guy who likes to keep working on myself physically because I want to make sure that I'm, in a situation where I can continue to do what I love for longer and be with my partner for longer. And I can't do that if I feel like my partner is not on the same page because, I've had problems in the past where I've had to overcompensate my time and effort because they weren't looking out for their own health and well-being too. It's all in the way in which you sort of express how you feel and also doing it not in a place of judgment or in terms of control, but more in terms of saying, really sharing your story and why it matters to you. They may not agree to it, but it's up to them really at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, it's up to them.
Mm.
Lamont, anything?
Well, I think I've shared this with Ken before, but when I got married, in my wedding vows, I told my husband that I promised to take care of myself first. So that I can be the best husband in the relationship. Not to take care of him first, but take care of me.
That's powerful. That is so powerful. It's the same analogy. If you're thinking in terms of analogy, I'm gonna put my oxygen mask on first. If I'm on the airplane and we're going down, how am I gonna help you if I can't help myself? Exactly. If I'm not healthy.
Yeah. And I think we've been taught that we should give our all to other people, be their everything, like literally be their everything. Like I think this might offend somebody, but I'll out there. I think sometimes in relationships, people think that our partners, our husbands should be our best friends, our providers, our sexual, everything. It's like, that's a tall glass of water to live up to. Like I told my husband, I have a best friend. His name is Rashawn. That's my best friend. My husband is my partner for life. But there are certain places like my mother feels that my husband cannot feel, that my siblings feel that he can't. So I think it's those expectations that we put on partners that are really toxic. And we just have to kind of step back and kind of redefine our relationships and ourselves.
I think that's so freeing. Like, I think somebody's going to get set free. Either they're watching now or they're going to watch later because they've been dealing with that in their relationship and they're feeling that push and that pull because they really have been told through society, church, family, whatever they've seen, that one person is your everything. And it just doesn't feel that way. They feel the pressure, the immense pressure of having to be there, everything. They're like, I love you. I want to be with you. You're my partner, but I can't do everything.
No.
Yeah. I think it's totally fine to expect certain things from your partner. Like, for instance, okay, I have a circle of 4 best friends who I love to pieces, and I can turn to them for pretty much anything, which is fantastic too, except for sex, obviously.
Right. It's like, not doing that.
No, I'm not crossing those boundaries for very, not for pragmatic reasons, but for ethical reasons. But anyways, I think it's what I usually tell my clients is like, look, when it comes to dating, you do want to be finding your sexy best friend, but be realistic about what best friend means. It doesn't mean best in all areas of life. You're never going to have any challenges. It means, realizing that that person is their own mess, their own individual going through their own crap. And so putting the reverse logic of what Lamont was saying in his wedding vows is saying they need to take care of their own walk too. They need to take care of their own shit. We cannot be their therapist for them too. Happy to listen to them and happy to, be part of that too. The number of times I've said to my best friends sometimes when I can hear them, and they've done this to me too, like when I hear them repeating the same patterns, I have called them out on it and said, listen, I've noticed this. I'm observing this. What do you think about this? Because I don't want that buildup of resentment to impact my long-term relationship with my best friends. And I think that by having the opportunity to express that, you actually really start to see the person for who they are. You go, okay, this is who they are. This is clearly the pattern that they have. And at the end of the day, I still appreciate them for who they are, because the good outweighs the bad.
Listen, you spoke on resentment just now, and I think it's really the resentment that it's like plaque when someone's getting ready to have a heart attack. It gets in that tube and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So when you're saying, because your grandma said, oh, you got to take care of your husband, you got to take care of your man, the more you spend time on them and the less time you spend on you, the resentment builds and it builds and it builds. And then you're doing things for them that they haven't asked for. And then you're expecting them to do the same thing for you, but they never asked you to sacrifice your life to make them happy. And it's not making them happy, by the way. Child, this is very good. If you're just tuning in, this is the Damon Speak Show. Tonight we're talking about gay dating, and we're sitting down with Lamont White and Ken Reed. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Ronald says, we deserve the very best version of every relationship we enter. Sometimes we don't realize the successful relationships, romantic, platonic, business, often depend on us bringing our best selves. You can't make the best meal without the best ingredients. Very good. Ken, I wanted to ask you to elaborate a little bit on this, you becoming a coach just kind of by happenstance because of a situation that you went through.
Yes. So what would you like me to tell you?
So tell us what happened and how you kind of decided to become a coach from that. Did you just want to help other people that may have gone through like the extreme heartbreak that you went through?
Oh, I just popped out of my mum and I realized that I needed to become a relationship coach for gay men. No, the trauma from birth was just too much that I had to talk about it with my peers. No, I'll explain what happened in a nutshell without giving the TED Talk or the Marvel movie origin backstory. So basically what had happened was 2019, so a couple of years ago, I thought I was doing really well. I'd entered the new year with a new job, pay rise, feeling pretty good as a marketing manager. But beneath the surface, I wasn't feeling good. I was feeling quite lonely, and I thought dating would fix that. I then date this guy who I instantly fell in love with because he had everything that I wanted on paper. Tall, attractive, fit, smart, worked as a doctor, and I was just swept up in his world and completely lost myself. And he acted and walked and talked like he wanted a relationship. He said some really endearing things and confirmed chemistry and connection until by the end of the month, he was like, no, I don't think I actually want to be in a relationship. I'd much rather go home and just watch porn. But don't worry, you'll find someone great one day. And so it was really quite devastating to me. It was really devastating. But the reason it was devastating was not just the rejection, but also the fact that my life at that point had been built up on really shaky foundations. I had low self-worth, low self-esteem. I had people-pleasing patterns of behavior. And, that experience highlighted all of it. So without him, my source of happiness at the time was gone. I felt like I was a failure because, if I was so good, why would he leave me? And clearly I've done something wrong. And, at the time I was thinking, like most guys I've noticed do, I was thinking, well, how can I get him back again? How can I, get this to work? And, it was one of those really painful experiences where 6 months I was just stuck in heartbreak hell. And really in that honeymoon hell phase where I just couldn't get myself out of it. And I was overworking. I was seeing many friends, dating many guys, doing all the things you shouldn't do, but things you learn in hindsight. And then it was only when I took a holiday to Europe and I read A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle that the mindfulness in that book, the spirituality of that book, really allowed myself to sort of step away from who I was at that point and sort of reawaken and go, okay, there's some unaddressed things here that I've really not seen in my life before. I don't have a good, healthy relationship with my family. I don't enjoy my current job, and I never did, even when I started. I stopped lying to myself and started realizing, okay, what I've been working on and everything that I've done in my life wasn't for me. And to be completely honest, I think I kept talking and thinking about relationships for those 6 months. And my colleague at work said to me, you should go into psychology and you should learn more about this. And that innocent comment then became a bit of a journey. I then went into counseling, did a diploma of counseling. And then if I had followed that framework, I'd be a relationship counselor in 5 years in Australia. And I was prepared to do that when an opportunity to learn how to be a coach came up. And I had just undergone that process while still doing my counseling diploma, and I've completed that, but I was only halfway through at the time. And when I was just starting out learning what it meant to be a coach and seeing if it was for me, I had also started an Instagram page, which is my Instagram page now, and I had less than 100 followers when I had a guy just approach me and said, I really need your help because I've just undergone a sudden breakup. It's killing me. I'm 4 months, still talking to this guy and I don't know what to do. And I kind of want him back and I don't know what my next step is. And I had to really think to myself. I had a hard minute where I was thinking, well, I don't know how to help this guy. I'm halfway through a counseling diploma. Do I need to be more qualified to be a coach? How do I help this guy? Maybe I should refer him on. Instead, I had another thought that came up, which was like, well, actually, I have overcome this heartbreak. I know how to mentally change my perspective to see that that wasn't serving me and that he couldn't appreciate me and that he certainly wasn't healthy for me. And there were red flags all over that I could see with clarity. And so I know how to take someone off the pedestal. I can surely teach that to someone else, or at the very least get them to think about it. And so that was the story of how I got started and had my first paying client. And so that was a great experience because off the back of that, he was able to sever that situation with the guy who was dragging that out. He even said, I'm not seeing my therapist anymore because what you've given me has allowed me to get the resolution that my therapist could not give me. So that's how it all got started.
That is very powerful. I love that story, and it kind of reminds me of my life a little bit. I like to call these things breadcrumbs to my destiny. Like by chance, I just went to this opera program and someone heard me there and referred me to this person and I got a scholarship to this school. And then, I happened to meet this person over the summer and they're like, come to my grad school. Like all those things happened in the most perfect way. Although there was some shit, there was some pain. It's brought you to this place where you're able to help so many people. That's very
powerful. I feel it has, and I owe a lot to that experience. And I've since actually gone on and forgiven, that individual via voice message because I needed to just close that chapter of my life. And I did that actually a couple of months ago. And I know that we often hear things like closure's a scam, closure is just, it's a mental job. And yes, it can be a mental job. But in my life, I know for me, I sometimes with people who are significant in my life have hurt me, I actually need to say the words and they need to hear it, receive it, because that clears that out of my system. We are not creatures that are made for long-term grudges, resentment. That stuff needs to be departed from our bodies.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Lamont, you've been coaching since 2014. Tell us, what made you want to become a coach? How did you get into the business?
Right. So most of my background is in doing direct counseling with gay men, particularly couples. And I have a HIV prevention background. I work for the federal government, still doing some public health work. And what I have found is a lot of the work that I was doing was solving problems within the gay community. Really negative things or things that negatively impacted gay men. And I really just wanted to do something positive where I can actually build up my community in a different way. And how better to do that than help gay men form relationships and families and to stay in those long-term relationships. So when I look back when I'm like 75, I want to be able to say, like, I've helped hundreds of guys build families and build healthy relationships for our community. So that is my selfish reason for getting into this business.
That really just warms my heart so much because I know that there are a lot of guys out there, because of religion, whatever it may have been, that have thought that they would never have a stable, loving relationship, a marriage, children. Are you kidding me? But you are out here doing the real work to bring us together. And I think that there's such a need. There is such a need for this. And so I'm just grateful that you're here and that you're doing the work.
Very huge need. And I will be here until I'm still a little more gray.
What would you all say to someone who thinks that it's too late to find love or to have that family or to get married?
Lord, to date. So most heterosexuals usually get married like in their early 20s to maybe about like 35, early 20s. That's when they get married. For gay men, it's a little different. It's about like 30 to 45. That's the sweet spot where you know who you are, you're financially stable, you're somewhere in a good place in your career, so you're ready to kind of like start a family. Now, for some of the guys who are a bit older, I would say don't give up hope. I would also say be okay with looking for different things in a partner. So a six-pack is not something you're going to be looking for if you're like 65, 75, 85, right? You're going to be looking for someone who is kind, caring, supportive to you. So I think it's really about just switching up what you're looking for.
Kim?
Yeah, I love everything Lamont said. I think I can speak for myself. I mean, I'm only 29, but I can say that my interest in guys has definitely narrowed itself down to I'm just after someone who can listen to me, is kind, consistent, and willing to grow. Like, that's basically it. Like, I don't ask for much because all the holes that I had before, like when I think about the kind of guy that I had who broke my heart, you know, I don't need those things anymore because they're not me, you know, or more to the point, I've got what I need. You know, I feel well off, I feel healthy, I feel fit, I feel fantastic to the point where I'm like, I don't need that from another partner. What I just need are basic requirements like, you know, consistency, love, and compassion. Now, when we talk about, is it too late? My answer is, well, that's entirely up to you. You know, at the end of the day, you decide whether it's too late. And I think the challenge can be that we compare ourselves to, you know, our straight counterparts. We look at their life and think, oh, because unfortunately, many people who have straight friends, they're getting married, they're having children, they're not spending as much time with you. And that in itself is problematic behavior. Like, let's just call that out for 1 second and say, if they're not spending as much consistent time with you, but it's to the point where they can't even make that time for you, you know, in their relationship, then that's a codependency issue on their part, not yours. You aren't a bad friend. That's on them for trying to tick all their boxes. So let's clear that out. And I think with that also, we need to be more mindful that we shouldn't be comparing our journey with theirs either. For people who are straight, so many of them enter relationships for the wrong reasons in their 20s and 30s, only to wake up at 40 to realize, what have I done with my life? So before we glamorize all of their achievements, I think it's actually better to think about, well, hang on a minute, what am I learning for myself? And that's not to, you know, to crap on our straight counterparts at all. It's just to say that, you know, they have their own challenges that they're going through. But being married and having kids and having all your boxes ticked should never be something that drives you to be in a relationship. So I think if you have this idea of, oh, well, it's too late because I'm 40, 50, 60, you know, reframe your mind and think, well, actually, there are so many great guys who've probably overcome so many challenges that they wouldn't have at 20, at 30, or even at 40. But now with the power of hindsight, they're at the perfect place to be dating because they accept me for who I am. You don't want the guy who, you know, is 30 years younger than you and is insecure about the fact that you are in two completely different time spaces. You don't want the guy who's a physical stud if you want a long-term healthy relationship. If they've got the emotional availability there that you're after and they just happen to be physically attractive, that's a bonus. But it should never be the requirement that you need, because if that's something that you need, ask it of yourself. What are you doing to work on your body? What are you doing to actually get that life for yourself? Because your partner shouldn't be delivering that for you.
Okay, it's getting hot in here. Very good.
I'll say amen, brother. Amen.
TED Talk
Wow.
done.
Wow. You said something so powerful, and when it comes to if it's too late, it's really up to us. How many times do we put our hopes and our dreams and all the things that we want in the hands of other people and into the court of public opinion about whether it's too late or not? I think that wasn't that a sermon, Chris? A very good sermon. Thank you. We need to put up his Cash App so we can send him an offering. Okay. Now, this is the thing I want to get into when it comes to physically attractive or not dating. I've had friends say that they have been with someone or someone approached them about going out on a date that they were not necessarily interested in, but they decided to give it a chance, and they happened to fall in love with them, and then they became physically attracted to them later. And then there are other people that say, absolutely not. I could never even go out on a date with someone. Like if there's not a spark immediately, like they don't have to be conventionally attractive, but if there's not a spark, I'm not doing it. How do we deal with that?
Lamont, do you want to talk about this one? Because I think you've got a really good response to this, and I've heard you say it before.
Go ahead and tell me that again, because I went out for a quick second.
So how do we deal with the attractive or not factor? So there are people that say, someone invited me out on a date. I'm really not physically into him, but I went out on a date with him and he's a really nice guy. So I just, over time, I fell in love with him. He became physically attractive to me. And then there are other people that say, I could never go out on a date with somebody that's not physically attractive. Like I just can't make myself become attractive to this person. I feel bad about it, but that's just who I am.
Yeah, I think there are different types of falling in love or connecting with someone. Sometimes it's like immediate, like it's hot and everything. Other times it's like a slow burn where you're connecting on a different level and then you're finding things physically attractive about the person. Also, it's about trying to expose yourself to different things that you might be closed off to. So dating probably outside of your race, or dating someone who might be more masculine or feminine, dating someone who might be a little heavier or slimmer, just to say, let me see if this will actually work for me, because sometimes we're taught that this is what beauty is, and it's in this little small box, but it's pushing yourself to experience new types of, physical and emotional attraction.
I'm here for it. Ken, anything to add?
Oh, I love what Mama was saying. I know in my case, I have definitely dated guys who are outside of who I normally used to date, like guys who have been maybe not the most physically attractive guys, but I have definitely had moments where I have grown more attracted to some guys who initially I was not feeling it for, and that's okay. But this is the distinction. You can still be with someone, and I had this happen to me twice in a row, who may have on paper a lot of things that you feel compatible with, but you just don't feel anything for. And it's okay. You're allowed to say, I'm just not feeling the connection that I require in this relationship. If you're thinking to yourself, I don't want to say feeling bored, because I feel like that's the wrong expression, but if you're feeling like, I'm just not excited to see this person, I'm not interested to get to know them, and I'm certainly not doing this because I feel good about them. Like if you're saying that a month and a half in, I think it's okay to set yourself a time, a measure of time to go, is this meeting my needs? And if not, be honest with yourself. It's okay to say this person isn't for me. I think that on one hand, we can beat ourselves up so much for liking the attractive guys only. But then on the other hand, I think we can also beat ourselves up for not feeling it for someone who can tick a lot of our core needs, but they're just not doing it for us. And you know what? That's okay. Surrendering to that and realizing maybe this just isn't a good fit is better than trying to convince yourself that it is and lying.
Absolutely. It really comes down to being honest with yourself, because when you're honest with yourself about what you want and what you like, then you're really able to communicate that in a clear way to the person that you're dating.
Yeah. And I think that it's one of those things where I know this happened to me a couple of times where I've had guys who'd ask me, like, how do you feel about the pace? And I'd say to them, listen, 3 weeks in, I'm enjoying the pace. I enjoy talking with you. I enjoy where things are going, but I've got to be honest. I'm not feeling, that sexual connection or chemistry at this time. And that's something that I feel I still require in order to feel satisfied. That's a me thing. It may not be the same for everyone, but I think it was because emotionally I just wasn't invested in as much as I probably could have been. And I think ultimately there was imbalance. I think when you're in a situation with a guy who's overpouring, that imbalance happens and you just kind of feel overwhelmed. And that's certainly how I'd felt. And I'm sure I've done it to other guys too, where I was more into them than they probably were into me. And I think acknowledging the imbalance and going, I think that maybe the pace is jank. I think that, maybe that I'm just, it could also be a self-esteem thing. If the other guy has lost themselves for you, you feel it. You feel overwhelmed. You feel like this is the distinction. It's the difference between being appreciated and being admired. When you're appreciated, you're respected. When you're admired, someone's putting you on a pedestal.
Ooh, and that pedestal is dangerous. It's dangerous. Lamont?
Yeah, it's unhealthy, and you don't want to be in that situation. There's a power dynamic there. Yeah, and you should appreciate your partner and not, no. Because then it's not genuine. At some point, they're going to fail your expectations, and just because they're human. Because I think everyone makes mistakes in relationships. So when they do happen, when that does happen, they're going to be let down so heavily.
Yeah. Ronald says, I agree, Damon. I would add that being honest with ourselves about what we like should come with the charge of understanding why we like what we like and don't like. Get to that why. Ooh, that's hard.
The why is important. The why is, especially when we talk, and we have these conversations about sexual positions, about top, bottom,
honey,
lower today. Like some of it's just rooted into things that are just far off base. Others there's some truth to it where there's some health issues going on. Others, it's some insecurity that's going on. So it's working through that so that you can be sexually compatible with your partner.
Ooh, this is why you got to get a coach.
I love that so much, Lamont. Yes. And, to add to what you were saying, Bernard, about asking why, it's not just going to be the first why, it's probably going to be the fifth. One thing that I've often done to myself is the 5 whys, which is that traditional Toyota method for figuring out, how their business is evolving and what decision-making they're doing. Well, it's rooted in psychology. Like, why do you want to do this? Like, for example, the top and bottoming question. Why do you want to do that? Well, I want to have great sex. Why? Because it makes me feel good. Why? Because if I'm not having great sex, then there's something wrong with me. Why? Oh, because all gay men are having sex, and if I'm not able to do that, there's something wrong with me. Why? Oh, because I don't want to feel like that I'm not good enough. That's your real why, right there. Shrouded in crap that's not relevant.
Yeah.
I'm gagged. I never thought about getting to the 5th why. Okay. That's very, very, very good. Let's talk about racial preferences and racism in the gay community. Like, this is a huge issue that a lot of people are not willing to speak on, but you two did an Instagram live about this. So tell us, what did you talk about? What's happening? How do we fix it? Do we fix it?
Well, I think we had a great conversation about it. And I think it is okay if you don't want to date outside your race. Like, it's perfectly fine. Like, if that is what floats your boat, then that's great. The thing about it is when you're saying, hey, I can't find love. I'm having difficulty finding the right guy. And sometimes we limit ourselves to a certain race, to a certain size. And if we want to find love, sometimes we have to be a little bit more diverse. And going through that journey, we talked about not just treating people like flavors, but more so as human beings and getting to know their culture, their norms, and who they are as a part of trying to date someone.
Yeah, there was a lot of juice in that conversation that we had. And I think to add to what Lamont was saying too, let's be specific. If you're on Grindr and you've got all the preferences that are set there, I think that it can be highly toxic and discriminatory and racist, because you're categorizing human beings by their features, not by their core essence. And I think that it can be quite degrading. And I think, without going down the rabbit hole of Grindr and what it's good for and what it's bad for, I think the problem can often be the way we express our preferences. And I love what Lamont said when we were having this conversation, which is, don't express what you don't want. Express what you do want. And I think one thing too, when it comes to other races, don't make assumptions. I see, particularly in the States, I've seen a lot of the hate crime that's being committed to Black men, to Asian men and women, Black men and women, and to Asian men and women. And I think that we have a tendency to underestimate our subconscious biases when it comes to people of color. We make massive sweeping generalizations about people, like, oh, Asian men have small dicks. Oh, Asian men are unattractive because X, Y, and Z. And because I come from a country where we don't see African Americans, or even for that matter, Aboriginals walking on the streets in Sydney, Australia, my understanding of your culture is limited to stereotypes. So even I have to check myself when I'm communicating with you as well, to make sure that I'm being mindful of what I'm saying, but at the same time, not holding myself back and being too, corporate, or worse, tokenistic about my relationship with you two, as well as any other person of color.
Yeah. It's a different level of self-awareness. Yeah.
What would you say to someone that struggles with that and really just believes that there's nothing wrong with putting, I only prefer white men, or no fats, no femmes, or I would never date a Black guy in their profile? How do they become more aware? Is it getting a dating coach? Is it reading a book? What do you think as a coach is like a way to help them if they're honestly like, I really want to understand better?
Yeah, so I think racism is a mental health condition. So
I agree.
It's not a dating coaching issue. It's something that is systemic, that has been taught, that is reinforced every day. And certain people, they have certain privileges because of it. So they're rewarded from it, so they continue to do that behavior. So it is not the job of a dating coach. It's more so of our society as a whole, like national and local organizations who are trying to make our communities more diverse, who are addressing redlining, what neighborhoods people can live in, showing like what faces are on TV, who's at the table making decisions. It's a whole to do to fix that problem. So it will continue to take time.
Yeah, I agree. And I think something that Lamont and I said as well is, we talked about how one thing that's really lacking at the moment is understanding, particularly, what you're going through, for instance, the struggles of African-American folk, the struggles of Asian folk, the struggles of Latino folk. I think we are quick to sort of just go, great, you do you just sort out what you want to do, without actually integrating and understanding, okay, what has been your struggle? Because the thing is, and this is something that I've gone on record saying too, is that as a white man, I'm not going to know what you went through growing up, or the intergenerational trauma that happened to you. But if I can learn to at least appreciate, understand a bit, I can begin to empathize with what you've been going through. And I think what's missing is empathy. I think to actually get to that stage though, Lamont's right, it is a mental health thing. I think it's greatly related to fear. I think if you were to even ask the 5 whys, a lot of it comes down to, just a lot of conditioning. Think about us as gay men. How many children's books did you see with men and men holding hands and being together? Mostly men and women, who are white, at least the way I grew up. It's even those little things, those illustrations from children's books to the stories that we read, to what we watch on news that have subconsciously created this idea that unless you're a certain ethnic group, unless you're a certain, unless you're a white man, essentially, who's productive, who is earning a lot of money, you're somehow unsuccessful, and therefore there's something wrong with you, and you're part of a minority. And even saying that, it can really damage our self-esteem and self-worth.
Absolutely. And I'll say for, all those people that are on the apps or just out in the world and they see those profiles that say no whites or no blacks or whatever it may be, to try not to let that diminish your self-worth. That's just someone behind a screen. And oftentimes they don't love themselves. Oftentimes they have no idea what they are doing for their damn selves. Okay, this has been fantastic. We're at 9:18. I don't want to keep you much longer, but I want to ask you, now that we're talking about apps, do you think it's possible to find love on the apps, especially when we think about Grindr, Jacked, Scruff, Growler? Is it possible?
Yeah, so I think gay men have been meeting and falling in love on apps since they've come out. I think there is a negative perception of the apps because there is such a big hookup culture on the apps. But there are guys out there who are using the apps to meet, to find out like what club to go to, what restaurant should I eat while I'm visiting, and also to form relationships and going on dates. I have guys who have gotten married from off the apps. So I think it's very, very feasible.
Yeah, I love what Lamont said. And I think to add to that too, what I would add to that is that think about this as a marketing point of view. Where are gay men and how can you meet them? Because in my experience, going to gay bars and clubs, not really going to work out because at a fundamental level, everyone can be very cliquey. And I think that's because we're all very hyper vigilant and we're super worried about judgments. So that limits your options. Whereas the dating apps, unlike the shopping aisles of your local supermarket, presents a lot more opportunities because you've eliminated the first major barrier, which is, are you gay? You can't do that as easily or as effectively with someone who you've just met in the street. The biggest assumption is, oh, they're straight, and they may not even be straight, or they may be closeted, which is its own kettle of fish. But I think that the dating apps have reduced a lot of barriers to entry in terms of us being able to meet up with one another. So I think that's definitely possible. But again, let's, using the marketing language, this is something I've said repeatedly, which is, if you're on dating apps, don't use Grindr. And my reason for that is you're shooting yourself in the foot. Because if, for instance, this is Sydney's demographic. I don't know what it's like in other parts of the world, like New York or Georgia. But what I can say is that if you are looking for a serious monogamous relationship, marriage, well, go to the places where people are looking for that too. Because if you're going into the pond of hookups, then you're kind of at a disadvantage. It's kind of like fishing in the frog pond, hoping to get salmon when all you're getting is frogs.
True. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that it's possible. I used to be on the apps a lot. I stopped because it just wasn't good for my mental health, for the space that I was in at the time. I felt constantly rejected. I was constantly looking at it, even when I didn't want to. The first thing I did when I woke up, the last thing I did before I went to sleep, it caused tremendous anxiety for me. But I think now that my mindset has shifted, that it could be possible. I think it could really be possible for anyone, because if I, as a good person or as someone that was really looking to date someone, could be on an app, then there must be someone that could match that energy on the app as well.
I can't wait until we see the culture shift on the gay dating apps, where guys are comfortable with putting their face pictures out there, sharing about who they are, what they want in a relationship, because it can be difficult putting yourself out there if you live in a small town or a small city. And I always tell guys, like, you have to make your presence known that you're single and that you're looking for someone. So what better place to do that is on a dating app or online dating or a matchmaker so that you can find love. Sitting at home hoping he's going to find you will never happen. You have to put yourself out there.
I agree. And I think you also have to embrace the fact that you're going to be hurt. And that's okay.
Yes.
In fact,
you run track, you trip, you fall, you scrape your knees, you get back up, you keep running.
And to add to that too, Lamont, I think also something that I give permission to my clients too is that you're also going to hurt people unintentionally. You know, this is the thing that I often tell people is that we are so paralyzed by the fear of hurting someone's feelings. I mean, yes, we could, but it's up to them to restore their own equilibrium and self-regulate their own feelings. So the thing I always remind my clients is you're not responsible for their feelings. You're not intending to hurt that person. If they take your words and turn it into something that hurts them, that's them. However, the difference between you and someone who intends to hurt is entirely the intention. If you're dealing with someone who's a narcissist, oh boy, they mean to tear you up, rip you apart, discard you, do whatever they want to do with you because that's their design. But if you're someone with a decent amount of empathy and also someone maybe with a bit too much empathy and also someone who, you know, wants the best for their future and their lives, it's okay that sometimes we're going to unintentionally hurt one another. It's also about reconciling that for yourself and realizing that at the end of the day, it's just part of the process.
Listen, I've been on both sides of the fence. I've been the person that's hurt someone's feelings, and I have been the person that has lied and gone on the date or even gotten in the relationship or gotten in the bed with that person because I didn't want to hurt their feelings. But undoubtedly, at some point, it will come out, I'm really not interested in you. I would either ghost them or have to tell them that this whole time, this just wasn't working for me. But I spent more time on the side of the fence where I was super sensitive, getting my feelings hurt all the time, being the victim, but also villainizing them. They may have just been telling me what they needed or the fact that it wasn't working for them in a very healthy way, but I'd be like, you're fuck you. You know what I'm saying? Because I really felt like I needed them or I really attached myself to them and attached how I wanted them to feel about me to my self-worth. But at the end of the day, their feelings are not your responsibility, people. I really want you to internalize that because that keeps you from being honest, which is needed in dating.
It saves you time, money, and energy. Okay.
Very good. Very good.
It also, I was going to say, like, to add to that too, it's also going to protect your health. You know, the cost for getting it wrong is astronomical in the sense that if you, like, without going down the whole psychiatric route of this, if you're with someone who's not good for you, you'll feel it. You'll feel the stress. Your body will be in fight and flight the entire time. You'll be trying to cover up your feelings. And those feelings aren't just fluff in the air. They materialize in your gut. That's what causes autoimmune diseases and a whole bunch of problems. So if you want to talk about the price of lying, the price of getting it wrong, start looking at your health and how that's going to be impacted down the road. Because if you wake up one day with 2 carcinoids because you were not able to stand up for how you felt, that's not only time and money, but that's also your life now at risk.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, this has been fantastic. I know a lot of people have been touched, healed, and delivered from this conversation. We could go on for hours and hours and hours. I must have you back on the show, but I would love to know, are you accepting clients? Where should people find you online? And is there anything coming up? Like I know, for example, Lamont, you have the Shoot Your Shot Wednesdays. Tell us about it. Tell us where to find you and how we can connect with you.
Sure. So they can simply go to my website. It's betterwaytomeet.com. I do couples counseling, dating coaching, and matchmaking. Always accepting clients. I have different packages that you can check out on the website there. And on Wednesdays, we do an amazing Shoot Your Shot Wednesday on our Instagram page, which is the Gay Dating Coach handle. I will just say, tune in on Instagram and put the kids to bed.
Ken?
Yeah, so you can find me at my Instagram handle of ken.reed_relationship.coach. And I predominantly help single gay men who are looking to overcome heartbreak, loneliness, rejection, to identify red flags and attract open, honest, committed partners, singular, and or more if that's what you want. But the key thing is that it's really my approach and my program, Find My Man, is an 8-week program that's really designed to help men better understand their own patterns of behavior that are keeping them stuck in dating, to then be able to work out who's the man that I want to become, and by extension, the kind of man that would want me. You know, who do I want and who do I have to be in order to attract that? And then getting into the practice of improving your communication, boundary setting, and removing a lot of the people-pleasing habits that might be keeping you stuck in dating. And I'm taking applications for that in the link below.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love this whole conversation. I love the whole thing that we've done tonight. Listen, thank you so much to my audience for tuning in. If you found this helpful, please like, share, subscribe on YouTube. There are so many people that need to get this good information. There are so many people that need to be touched by this. If you're feeling inclined, please support the Damon Speak Show. You'll find Venmo, Zelle, and Cash App below. But mostly, I would really love if you share this with someone that this could really be helpful for. Thank you to Lamont. Thank you to Ken for joining us tonight. The thing I want to leave you with tonight is that it's possible. There's so much heartbreak. There's so much trauma that a lot of us have been through, and it's kept us in spaces that we feel like we're not good enough, that we feel like it'll never happen for us. And all that resentment has built up. And so we lash out at others. We're catty toward others. We're not willing to meet others. We're not willing to be nice for others. Thank you, Tiberius. Thank you for tuning in. So we want you to know that it's possible. And if you need to get a dating coach, go get what you need. Thank you, Andy Pandy. We love you. Contact Ken, contact Lamont. There is help available for you. It's possible to be married. It's possible to be in a relationship. It's possible to have children. It's possible to have the life that you want. It's all possible. Tune in next week. We're going to be talking about grief and managing grief. There have been so many people that have lost loved ones and jobs and money in 2020 going into 2021. And we're going to unpack that a little bit next week. We're going to talk about how to actually move through that in a healthy way. You can always find the Damon Speak Show every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time at youtube.com/Bernard Damon Holcomb. Please give it up for Cody Godot. He is behind the scenes making everything happen. Cody, we love you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's the show. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Let's roll the credits.